Hi everyone, this is Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I want to welcome you to a special video series that we're doing with our friends at Arista. Now, the topic is network security, something that I've been passionate about for 40 years, and that I think is really essential to modern computing and to protection of enterprise. So the topics that we'll be covering range from things like network segmentation, for example, where you're focused on rearranging architectures in a way that allow us to dampen things like lateral traversal, kinds of things you see all the time when an attacker or a nation state is, say, breaking into an enterprise and then looking for assets. So we'll spend some time on that. We're going to spend time on visibility. That's an underlying foundational issue in network security, pulling telemetry and using that telemetry as the basis for detecting problems. I remember some number of years ago, in 2003-ish, we started learning that by collecting telemetry, you had a chance of actually making sense of things. That was the era when there were worms happening, the Nachi worm and so on. And it was quite a discovery that the visibility at the network security level might provide a glimpse into attack activity that we hadn't sensed before. And ever since then, we've been improving techniques. And you'll learn from the experts at Arista how that has become a very absolutely foundational component in modern network security and protection of network infrastructure. We'll also look at this new technique known as network detection and response. A lot of you know that cybersecurity is sort of shift right and left. Like I was arguing about, should you shift left and be more preventive, shift right and be more responsive? I think that the Arista team has a good balanced view on how this type of thing will proceed, and we'll definitely spend some time talking about NDR. One other thing about NDR is that it's become kind of a new category of cybersecurity. And I know for a lot of CISOs and enterprise security folks who may be watching, we've all become sort of suspicious when we see these new categories. We wonder if they're created by marketers. I think in some cases that's true, but for NDR, I don't think that's right. I think NDR is a legitimate discipline for enterprise protection. And we'll talk about the benefits of sort of that shift right view, where I think sadly we have to acknowledge that there are going to be attacks on networks. It's not possible to protect everything because we don't control all aspects of a network or the things that we connect to. So we know that there's going to be breaches, incidents, and other types of things that happen. So naturally, networking becomes something very conducive to a detection and response process. Back when I spent my life in telecom, we would do this thing called management by exception, which meant we're always watching what's happening. And when we see patterns that shift from what we would expect, then that exception allows us to take action. It might be a security problem, or it could be a broken router or something. But there's a wonderful discipline there, and I think that you're going to enjoy that from our discussions with the team at Arista. We're also going to talk organization. So some of you listening right now might be in security teams, some of you might be in network teams, some might be in IT teams. The question is, where does security, network security belong in that organization? There's cases that can be made for each of them. You could even make the case that it ought to be a shared responsibility. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about sort of the pros and cons of those types of things. We're also going to talk about infrastructure. You can't be a networking expert without knowing full out that the dependability and the reliability of a network are directly related to how well you've organized your infrastructure. Then registration, the identity, even the hardware management, the hardware layers, and how you're managing and administering your equipment. These are all infrastructure components. They're different than the protocols and maybe the higher level aspects of networking that may be a little bit more familiar to AppSec and more conventional InfoSec professionals. But down at the lower levels, the infrastructure issues have deep implication on cyber threat and on cyber risk. So I think you're going to have fun. This is designed for both practitioners, managers, even casual observers. We're going to try and keep the conversations at a level that you'll understand And if you're an expert, hopefully there'll be some things in here that will maybe provide some insights that you may not have had. What we're going to do is we're going to do each of these interviews with one of the experts, again, from our friends at Arista. It'll be me talking to them. I think you're going to enjoy it, and I hope you join us for this series. And you'll have to let us know afterwards what you think. So why don't we get started? We'll do our first session. Why don't you go right into it and enjoy our first session. Thanks so much for joining us, and it's going to be great speaking with you.